Hello and welcome to the InsideStylists podcast. I'm Emma Morton-Turner and you're listening to episode 2, How I Became an Interior Stylist. So this is the second episode of the podcast, but actually it's about the 8th that I've recorded. I've interviewed a number of stylists and writers already in the pre-launch stage, and I found it really fascinating to hear how people got their jobs on magazines or became freelancers. And I always planned on telling my story, but I just kind of assumed everyone had the same story to tell, and it's just not the case. There are so many different ways to get into doing interior styling or interior writing. So today I'm going to just tell you my story. I'm going to try and keep it quite short, but we'll see how we go. I started off, I was doing product design and engineering at uni, and when I finished, I didn't really like the sound of any of the jobs that I was kind of going for interviews of. They mainly were things like designing roof tiles and toothbrushes, and they just looked a bit boring, if I'm completely honest. So I kind of started doing my weekend job full time, which was working at Gap, and I was bored out of my mind. So I decided to go for a graduate job. And the first graduate job that I came across was working for IPC Media in their sales team, selling classified ads. And I went for the interview, got the job, and was helping people sell their boats. I worked across the boating titles, mainly Practical Boat Owner and Yachting Monthly, I think it was. And it was not what I thought it was going to be. I basically was sitting at a desk, and the job entailed lots of sales targets. I basically sat at a desk with one of those headsets on, and the wire would go from the headset to the phone. And I literally felt chained to my desk, and I hated it. It just wasn't for me. How old was I? I was about 27, 28. And I had to put my hand up to go to the loo. And it was just things like that. And it just really wasn't for me. So while I was there, I discovered the whole world of magazines, which was something I'd never really considered working in that industry before. It was always that out of reach, people on TV, people in magazines. It was never something that I thought was a job that was available to me. And I decided I wanted to work on a magazine. And the avenue I thought I should take was through the art team. And I thought I could do layouts, which, knowing what I know now, was an absolutely ridiculous idea because I had no experience whatsoever. But I thought, right, I'll go and do a Photoshop course. So I did a 6-week Photoshop. And I mean 6 weeks as in once a week for 6 weeks. Can you imagine how little I knew? And I did a layout for a job that I was going for. And I had to do like a 1-page newsletter. And I just grabbed some cutout shots, and they were the most ridiculous images I chose, and the way I laid them out was awful. The whole thing, I mean, I had a friend who was a graphic designer at art college, and she helped me do the layout, and it just looked ridiculous. So I had an interview lined up with the art director on Homes and Ideas, and she was very sweet. She sat me down and she looked at my layout. Well, she took one look at my layout and thought, yeah, that's not going to work. But she was asking me what I was into, and I said, well, I'm really into tassel making. I've made loads of tassels, and then I put them on cushions, and once I ran out of cushions I started making curtains, and once I finished curtains I did upholstery. And she said, oh, so you're really into interiors? And I said, yeah, actually I am, really. And she said, well, you should be a stylist. And I said, what's a stylist? And she explained what the job was and said maybe I should go and speak to one of the stylists out on the in the office. And I did that. Straight after the interview, I went straight to the home editor and had a long chat with her. And she explained to me that you had to do work experience and gain experience in doing the job, getting contacts, understanding how it all works. And that was it for me. I knew that was the job I was destined to be. I really believe in fate, that I was in the right place at the right time. Had I not gone for that job, I probably would never have learnt that there was a job as an interior stylist. But I didn't really I wasn't in a position to just not work. So I went to the bank. I told them I was buying a car. I borrowed £4,000 and I set off to do work experience until my money ran out. And I was very fortunate. I did work experience for, I think it was 7 months in total. So by today's standards, not long at all. But I did work experience all over IPC. While I was doing my working my notice, I went to all the magazines that were interiors based and asked to do work experience, got lots of work experience lined up. My very first work experience was ironically on Woman and Home, where I met Wendy Salmon, who I worked with later on. And she got me to, I can't remember what I was doing. I was just tearing out images and pictures and sticking them in this kind of a scrapbook sort of book that they used to do back then. I'm sure it was some sort of guard book. And that was my very first experience on a magazine in the homes department. I worked on Homes and Gardens, where everyone had a double-barreled name, including me. And I did Essentials, where I was a reader. Within the first week of being on Essentials, the fashion editor, Angela Kennedy, walked up to me and said, "Oh, are you doing work experience? Great, we need you on a shoot next week." And I had to go and straddle a chair in very tight suede trousers. Actually, it was fake suede trousers and a very short crop top, because this was pre-children and I had a six-pack. Well, kind of a six-pack. But I was never a size 10, and the clothes were a size 10, and they were so tight, and I had to smile and have my hair and makeup done. And it was just really interesting, having never really been on a proper shoot before. So that was really good fun. I did work experience on Essentials, Country Homes and Interiors. I did Living Etc. I did a lot of dry cleaning runs on Living Etc. It hadn't been going very long then. And I did Family Circle, which I loved. I met Charlotte Boyd there. And I did Period Homes. I did all sorts of things. And what I kind of did Essentials and did that fashion shoot. And then I went around and did other things. And then I went back to Essentials again. And Dilly Orme was the home editor, and she had me work there for a little while. And she was very sweet. She always tried to get people who were doing work experience to do other jobs that they could pay you for, which I didn't realise at the time she did this, but it was so lovely. I made curtains and cushions for shoots, for makeovers or something. And it gave me a really big bump up in my money, because back then they used to pay you for your travel and gave you something like £1.50 or £2 a day for lunch or something. And making those curtains really made my money stretch that little bit further, meant I could do a couple of extra weeks of work experience. So thank you for that, Dilly. Anyway, Dilly said she had a friend on Homes and Ideas who was looking for an entry-level assistant. I should go up and maybe apply. So I did. I went up and said hello. And ironically, Homes and Ideas was where I applied for the designer role. Anyway, I applied for that job and I got it, and I became the homes assistant. So when you kind of look at why you get jobs or how you get them, and when you're starting as well, I had these 7 months work experience of working on all these different titles and experiencing different areas. Because actually, when you compare the way magazines work, I was really interested in how different they all felt, because I was a real fan of like Living Etc. and I loved Homes and Gardens, and I thought they're the magazines I want to work on. But actually, as much as I loved working on those home interest titles, I had much more fun working on the general interest titles. So working in the homes department on Woman and Home and Essentials and Family Circle, where you have all the different elements coming in. I just loved that atmosphere. It just felt more me. Anyway, so I got this job on Homes and Ideas, and the reason I think I got it is because they needed someone who was quite handy with DIY tools. They used to do lots of craft projects, and they weren't just kind of pretty little crafts, the kind of thing I do now. They were more make a table out of pallets and saw stuff up and drill stuff up. And when I was at uni doing product design, I had to make all manner of things, and I was using really big pieces of machinery. I was doing pillar drills and lathes and all that sort of thing. So I wasn't scared of kind of handling tools. I was very confident with it. And actually, I love doing that sort of stuff. Even now, best Christmas present I was ever given was a drill. I used to say to my kids, if Daddy asks, this is what I want. And I wanted a Bosch drill that was wired, because I think wireless drills are just useless. They just lose power. And anyway, I digress. So I got this job on Homes and Ideas, and I worked there for a year and a half before that magazine closed. And that was my first experience of magazines closing, which now in hindsight, I know that it happens quite a lot. But when it happened for the first time, I was a little bit like, oh my God, what am I going to do? I've literally just got a mortgage and I now have no job. But as I think anyone who's in this industry knows, it's not what you know, it's who you know. As I mentioned, when I was on Family Circle, I made friends with Charlotte Boyd and we got on really well. Charlotte was the homes assistant on Family Circle while I was doing work experience. But in the time I was at Homes and Ideas, Charlotte had become the home editor on Woman and Home. And the department was kind of, I don't know if it was growing or just the workload was too much for one person and an assistant. It needed more people. She was in a lot of meetings and couldn't do calling in for shoots if she was in all these meetings. So a new job was created, and that was Interior Stylist. And because the way things work when lots of redundancies are about to happen, IPC had a freeze on like recruitment from outside of IPC. And I was very fortunate that I got that job. So I went to work with Charlotte on Woman and Home, and that was brilliant. It was really good fun. There's a real, having done work experience and worked on my first job, I was a little bit like rabbit in the headlights, learning everything, really learning so much more than I would ever have picked up as work experience. But when you go to a smaller team and it was myself and Charlotte and Wendy Salmon in the Homes team, you work really closely together. And I think from then onwards, I've always had these little teams that you work really hard and it can be really stressful, but you have a laugh and you kind of make really deep friendships in that. And I've seen other people who work together now, and I see how close they are. And I think it is the same for most people. You have these great friendships. Charlotte and I were the Homes team with Wendy Salmon. And I wanted to share some stories, actually. There's 2 stories I can think of my time on Woman and Home when Charlotte was the home editor. The first was, she used to go into these planning meetings, and I remember always thinking, she's really confident and she knows exactly what to say, and I don't know how she does that. I really don't know that I'd have the ideas, and if I did, I just think sitting in a meeting with loads of people, I think I'd be really nervous to talk about my ideas, and I don't know, I just was quite green, I suppose. So I'd see her trundling off to these meetings and think, right, I'll just get on with calling in for the Christmas shoot or whatever. I can't remember how long I'd been working at Woman Home, but I got called into one of these meetings. So it was myself and Charlotte, the editor and the lifestyle editor. And I got on with everyone. I mean, I was a little bit scared of the editor at the time. And Charlotte just sat there saying, right, these are our ideas. Here's some real homes to look at. Here's the ideas I have for the features. And we'd like to do a news page on this and that, this, that and the other. And she'd pretty much done the whole planning meeting. And I just sat there smiling, nervously nodding. And the editor turned to me and said, what do you think, Emma? And I just was, well, I'm just taking it all in, really. And I just now, I mean, this must be 15 years ago. It must be 15 years ago. And I just think, I still remember the feeling of fear of not knowing what the hell to say without sounding like a complete idiot. And then I said, I'm just taking it all in, really. So I must have sounded like such an idiot. Anyway, I remember that. And I remember thinking Charlotte's amazing for being able to hold it all, project her ideas without any nervousness or anything. I mean, she'd been doing it for a little while, so I'm sure she felt like that at the beginning, but she didn't show it. So I just remember that. Now, my God, I've done so many meetings now. I completely understand where anyone is when they go into a planning meeting. You're confident with your ideas because you've put it together. But so that was one story. The other story is, I just remember we did these Christmas shoots. And when you do a Christmas shoot or a big shoot as a freelancer, you might do a 4 or 5 day shoot and it's kind of just the norm. You do it all the time. But when you do a shoot on magazines, it's kind of a different thing. If you're doing commercial shoots, you kind of have all the props together and you might have done some shopping. But when you're doing the editorial side of things, you just have hundreds of boxes with baubles in where you have to remember where all the baubles are. You've got to do 20 pages instead of your normal 5 pages a month. And it's just so full on and it's really physically and mentally draining. And I remember Charlotte and I had done this 4-day shoot. It was amazing. The shots looked fantastic. We were really happy with them. They were really long, hard days. And we walked in on the Friday. I remember Charlotte was already in and I think she was eating a croissant and she was sitting at her desk and I came in behind her as I kind of came into our little desk area. And we took one look at each other and we both literally burst into tears because we were so exhausted. And I think it was that whole relief that the whole shoot had gone really well, but that it was over. And we were laughing and crying at the same time. And I just always remember that. I remember that feeling of kind of elation that it was all over, but just shattered, absolutely shattered. And I was talking to Charlotte about that recently, and she remembers exactly the same moment, that whole relief that it was done, but really happy that we'd done such an amazing job. So that was my time with Charlotte, as I was the home stylist and she was the home editor. Then Charlotte moved on and became the home editor on Good Homes. And I didn't feel ready to kind of take on the home editor position. I kind of hadn't done any shoots on my own, and I thought, well, really you need someone who's got a lot more experience than me to step into Charlotte's position, because she'd done styling for so much longer than me. So we had a few people come in as acting home editor, and I kind of kept saying, when we're doing shoots, I'd say, oh, well, Sue doesn't really like that, the editor, and Sue doesn't like this, and Sue doesn't like that, and maybe we could do this, and I think she'd like this. And I kind of was second guessing what the editor would want the whole time. And I must have been undermining these poor girls, but I wasn't doing it to be annoying. I was doing it because I knew what Sue liked. Anyway, I went off for a week and on holiday. And when I came back, I got called into the office, and Sue James, the editor, said, Emma, I'd like to offer you the home editor's position. And I was like, huh? What? I was not expecting it at all. And I was properly shocked. And she said, oh, well, I know you'll want to go away and think about it and have a conversation with your husband. So, just come back and let me know tomorrow what you think. And I walked out of there thinking, oh my God, there's no way I'm saying no to you. If you think I can do it, then I am so doing this. So I was literally on cloud nine, and it had been quite a stressful time for me personally leading up to that. So it was kind of like a really good timing. So yes, I became the home editor of Woman in Home, and I loved it. I really, really loved it. I think Woman in Home is a very full-on magazine to work on. It's very high-pressured, really, there's, with any magazine, there's competition, there's drive, there's lots of personalities and egos to deal with. But I kind of have always felt, because I was home editor for 5 years, so I was there 9 years in total. Of my time there, I feel like you were only there if you wanted to be there, if you wanted to be in that hard working environment. If you weren't happy, you left, because you just wouldn't, it's too high pressured. So when I got offered that position, we had 2 work experience working with us and it was all Christmas time as well. We had 2 work experience coming in to help us out, and one of them was Theodore Solom's Isles. And Sue James said, Theodore's been fantastic. She'd be a really great deputy to your team. I would definitely recommend you hire her. And I thought, that sounds like a great idea. So I took Theodore up for coffee and we had a little chat, and I said, would you like this job? And she sat there absolutely beaming, as you can imagine. And so we became a new team. So Theodore, Wendy and I became the homes team, and I really enjoyed working in that team. I hope they did. I'm pretty sure they did. We had a laugh. The fact that we're all still really good friends now and meet up regularly, probably, 7 years later after I left, I think we got on quite well. And we had great fun, really good fun. When I've interviewed other stylists, I've talked about disasters that have happened. And I'm not going to talk about them now, because I think I'll probably talk about them when I'm interviewing different guests. But there's just one that I really remember with Theodore. And again, it's always the Christmas shoots, isn't it? We had a shoot, and it was at a location that only had uplighters around the sides of the house. And it was a massive Victorian house, a double roomed. But there was no lighting. We couldn't see from these uplighters. It was dark. We couldn't see what boxes we were packing up. It was so stressful. It was I think it got to about 9 o'clock, and it was just me and Theodore. And we literally lit every candle we could find and put them on every surface, just so we could see what baubles we were putting into what boxes. And everything was being packed up and collected in the morning. And another example of being absolutely shattered. And Theodore and I actually only live a mile away from each other. In fact, back then, I don't know if we did. But anyway, she phoned her husband and said, could you come and pick us up? And I've never been so grateful in my life. I don't think we could have talked, let alone walked out of that location. But that was, it wasn't a disaster, but it's just one of those really awkward situations where actually we could have done with another 4 work experience to help us out on that shoot. So from Woman in Home, when I had been there 9 years, other than having my 2 daughters, I'd pretty much done every Christmas, every Easter, every summer alfresco dining shoot. I had done, I think, God, when I left, Sue James said how many issues I'd done, and it was like 100 and something or other. It was a crazy amount of issues. And I just felt I'd got to this point where I'd done everything I could on Women in Home, and I wanted a new challenge. But as I've said, I really liked that whole feeling of being on a general interest title, and I'd kind of reached the top of my game in that arena, really, I think. Without going to a Homes title, I decided that the next step would be to go freelance. And the reason freelance worked so well at that point was that my daughter Darcy was just about to start school. So I figured if I didn't have to pay £600 a month in childcare fees, I could do 2 makeovers a month and I could make enough money to live quite happily because I wasn't paying travel and, I wouldn't be buying lunch every day. So I kind of had a financial plan. Having said that, I didn't actually have any kind of money backup. I had no savings. I had no work lined up. I just kind of decided to go freelance and did it. I'm quite happy to take a risk and to jump, much to my husband's stress levels. But anyway, so in 2011, I went freelance and I put out on Gorkana about 2 days before I left that I was going to be freelance and I was open for shoots and all that sort of stuff. And I got approached by Poundland to do their Christmas shoots. And that was actually really fantastic. I was like, oh my God, I've got work and I haven't even left yet. This is great. So I've been working for Poundland ever since, actually. And that's been brilliant because they've had a couple of different buyers. And every year the stock just gets more impressive and you have to find different ways of shooting the same type of product, obviously baubles. But that was really great. And that was good to have that kind of lined up. And then I also did quite a lot on Woman magazine when I first left. I mean, since I've been freelance, I've worked for all sorts of different people. I've worked for The Mail, Country Homes and Interiors. I've did shoots for Ideal Home, Style at Home. I've written for House Beautiful, Prima. I was the craft editor on Prima Makes, and I was craft editor on Essentials. I do quite a lot of craft. I don't even know how that happened because I never really did craft on Woman in Home. But I've always been able to do it. It just kind of happened. I've done stuff for Tesco's. I've shot lookbooks. Talking Tables. I can't miss Talking Tables out. I've been shooting for them for quite a long time as well. Love shooting for Talking Tables. It's like a new team because I've been shooting with the same people for 7 years. The photographer and the assistants and the photographer's assistants, they all kind of become a regular meetup. So it's just really good fun. Really good fun. Lovely product. Who else have I worked for? Retreat Home, Dylon. I've done press launches for Valspar, Kenwood, DeLonghi, Aldi. One day maybe I'll talk about the one day I'll talk about the DeLonghi press launch at the Avolta at the Olympic Park. I'll save that for another day though. Yes, so I've done quite a lot of different things. I've done magazine features, shoots. I've done blog posts. I've done styling for videos, for social media, all sorts of things really. Blog posts. I did Procter & Gamble's. I did loads of blog posts for Procter & Gamble, and it's really challenging to write. I think I had 6 posts I had to write about dishwasher tablets without repeating myself. So that was a challenge. So that really pretty much takes us up to date. I am doing all sorts of shoots and features at the moment. Obviously, I'm doing these podcasts, which are massively time consuming. Recording them, it's been so much fun, but editing them, it's just a big learning curve. I'm loving it though. I'm really loving it. So I'm hoping that's going to continue for quite a while. And I'm writing blog posts for the InsideStylists website. And I'm trying to kind of balance it all so I get to do a fair amount of shoots and a fair amount of writing and a fair amount of podcasts. Something else actually that I've been doing quite a bit of is I've been shooting with Simon Scarborough for a German picture library, and that's really good fun because that gives you complete autonomy. You can shoot whatever you want and then you send it off to the picture library and they either accept it or they don't. And I'd say 9 times out of 10, they do accept what we shoot. And that's good fun. So looking forward, I am hoping to do a couple of books this year. I've got a couple of books lined up. One is cakes, so completely off topic because I have a cake blog as well. And the other one is a secret project that I'm not going to talk about right now. But so that's my career, really. So how I became an interior stylist and what I've done since that happened. Yeah, can't think of anything I've left off, but I'm sure as I interview people, more tips and hints and experiences will come out. So that's it really for my journey. I hope you've enjoyed it. If anyone has any questions or wants to talk about anything, then that would be great. If you'd like me to interview someone specific and hear how they became a stylist or an interior writer, then please let me know, because I'm loving doing these podcasts. It'd be really great to be able to share information that you want to hear. You'll be able to find all of the contacts and links to who I've mentioned on this podcast on the InsideStylists website. If you go over to the podcast page, they'll all be there. So that's it. I hope you've enjoyed listening, and until next time, bye for now.